In this video, we will explain the number one deadliest objection handling technique that both ourselves and our clients use to handle objections and close sales effortlessly. We will also be covering why it is such a powerful technique and what makes it work so well. So grab your pen and paper and get ready to take a whole page of notes, because this is going to be great. Before we can unpack the technique on how to handle objections, there are a few key fundamentals that you must understand. Number one, you can't close everyone, because not everyone is suited to your service. If you're running a health and fitness center for women, for example, no matter how much a man wants to join your business, you won't be able to put them in their program and you won't be able to close them. It's just a fact of life. Number two, objections are a natural part of the sales process, and we must expect them and know that they are coming. Number three, we must keep control of the conversation, not the other way around. And lastly, we cannot give in to our clients to be's objection at all, or we have lost the battle, in inverted commas, so to speak. Alright guys, the moment you have all been waiting for. What is our number one technique? The number one deadliest objection handling technique that we use at Thriving Success is pre-handling coupled with effective storytelling. Number one, couple this with storytelling and you've got yourself a gold mine. Let me explain. I'll explain each separately for you, and then I'll give you some examples of how this is so effective. Pre-handling. Pre-handling is defined as handle beforehand. What I like to call proactive. In life, we can be proactive, so acting before something happens, or reactive, acting after something happens. So in the case of objections, wouldn't you rather handle the objection before it occurs? Because you already know it's going to occur. It's a natural part of the sales process. That's what I call the pre-handle. The objective. It deals with the objection before it arises. It creates an image in the client-to-be's mind very early on. I'll just take a quick pause there, guys. Notice what I'm doing when I'm talking about the person I'm talking to. Client-to-be. It's very important. It's another thing we cover in our sales course, but basically the mindset of things behind the way you talk is very crucial. Start calling them your clients. Start calling them your client-to-be, your future client. Don't call them leads or prospects. Act as if it's already happened, and that will get you amazing results in itself. That's a completely different topic, but I thought I'd make note of it for anyone listening today. Yeah, so create an image in the client-to-be's mind very early on. It makes it easier to handle the objection if it decides to arise again. And it also makes the client realize subconsciously that their objection is invalid. Now, storytelling. And by storytelling, I mean effective storytelling. The definition that we're going to use of story is this one right here. A story is a description of an event or something that has happened to someone. It's very important, the someone part, especially a spoken description of it. So essentially what that's saying, and I'll get to it a bit later, what types of stories we can tell, is that this has happened to someone else. And this makes it relatable to the client, because it's a human and this has happened to another human. That's very relatable. Look at the description. Isaac's story is typical of a child who has a specific learning disability. The client can now relate with Isaac or Bob or Jen or Jesse, whatever it may be. The objective. Like we said, it makes the client-to-be relate with the person in the story. It also allows the client-to-be to see that they're not the only ones that go through the process or have those feelings or those doubts. The story is about someone who was in a worse position than they are currently in. And what it does is it makes the client to be realize that their objection is merely an excuse. Effective storytelling now. When you're telling a story, you must focus on just one aspect of that story. Because if you focus on too many aspects, the story loses its credibility. So that's why, and we'll talk about it next, that's why I strongly recommend you have a story for each objection. And the types of stories we'll get to soon. But make sure that your story only focuses on one crucial element. So for example, it might be a story about how someone who didn't have money overcame the money objection, or someone who didn't have time overcame the time objection. Even if that particular client or yourself or whoever it is the story is about overcame multiple objections, make sure when you're telling the story, you only focus on one of those objections, the most important for the client to be. This part's very good. Multiple stories. You want to have multiple stories. As in the picture, you see 3 different cups. Each cup has a certain purpose to create a whole word. The first cup creates the first 3 letters. The middle cup creates the next 3 letters, and the last cup creates the ending of it. So what that does is it makes each part an integral part, and together they form the whole story. So what I mean by that, each one of your stories has its own objective. Combine multiple stories together and you can tackle all the objections that are going to come your way. Think about them. Think about them in your business. We all know what the objectives in our business are if we've been in business long enough to be talking to people. Money objections, time objections, energy objections, partner objections, lack of information objections, the let me think about it, I don't have enough information yet. Those type of objections, you can find stories either through, we'll get to it now. Actually, you know what, let's just go to the next section. So what types of stories? You can tell people stories through your story. Your story is very powerful because you had to go through something to get to where you are today. So tell people, relate to people so that they can relate to you. Your client stories. If you have clients and they went through something, tell people about it. My client, Jen, went through the money objection in this way. We'll get to the examples later. Your competitors have stories. You can talk about your competitors' stories in a reverse psychology way. Maybe something your competitor did that was wrong that your client to be should not do. Or industry stories, like 91% of businesses fail. All of these stories that we have, and just effectively selling them to the people to the clients to be, is what's going to make them more comfortable, more relatable to you, and essentially it's going to make it so much more comfortable to close them and close the sale. And now let me give you some examples so you can understand how pre-handling and effective storytelling work. The number one objection that we all get: I don't have the money. Now, when you leverage the story, just remember the key fundamentals. You must only focus on one point. The story must be relevant to the client. And if you're pre-handling, then you need to be able to bring it into the conversation smoothly so it doesn't sound like, oh, by the way, let me just tell you a story. Let's say I'm having a conversation with someone and they're telling me about their life and how they just feel stuck and they feel like they're working so hard but they're just not making ends meet. And so they don't have money, right? Then as they're saying that, I'll be like, I totally understand where you're coming from. I was the exact same. I had about $100,000 worth of debt. And that's the other thing. When you tell a story, you've got to make sure your story is 10 times worse than the story that they are bringing forth, their excuse, their objection. Because you're never going to run out of stories. There's stories everywhere, and there are so many people that have worse stories than than your current client. So all you got to do is tap into something, because what that does is it shows the potential client to be that their story is actually an excuse, and they start to see it themselves. So back to the example, I totally understand I was $100,000 worth of debt, and I was presented with an opportunity that would increase my business to 7 figures, but I had to invest $20,000. This is $20,000 that I did not have and I could not find, and in my mind, I was determined that I had no money. But what that made me realize was the reason that I had no money, the reason that I was $100,000 worth of debt, was because of my scarce mindset around money. I thought that money was very hard to come by. I thought that money, you had to work really hard to make money. And then once I let go of that belief that money was so hard to come by, and I was willing to step up and invest $20,000, it changed my whole life. I invested into a mentor, which has helped my business now grow, as you all know, to around 6 to 7 figures this year. We're on track to hit. Amazing stuff that I would never have thought of, and I'm on point to retire by the age of 27. So what I realized was that moment in my life, had I let fear overcome me, I would not be where I am today. And so I totally understand where you're coming from, but just understand that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Boom. Something along those lines. This was just made up on the spot, but something along those lines, where you leverage a story which is worse than theirs, they start to realize, oh wow, I don't have that much debt, but this guy had $100,000, yet still managed to do whatever it is. Still managed to invest into a mentor. And I think that my $2,000 worth of debt is something to actually complain about. Man. Number 2 that we all get, I don't have time. You're a fitness trainer. You have a 10-week course. Oh, I just don't have the time to commit to a routine schedule for 10 weeks. I'm just so busy. I run 4 businesses and have 3 kids. I totally understand. But let me tell you about Jody. Jody was a CEO in a top 500 company, and also ran and was correlating with 10 separate businesses. At the same time, she ran a homeless shelter for children. So when I asked her to join this challenge, because as you can imagine, she was so busy, she was running around the whole time, she wasn't looking out for her nutrition and her health. And so I approached Jo and I told her, I said, Jo, you need to start looking after your health, or you won't be able to manage all this stuff that you're managing, because if your health is not on point, then your energy levels drop. If you don't have energy levels, you won't be able to run around like the headless chook, so to speak, that you're running around managing all these places. I mean, you have 10 businesses. You also have a homeless shelter, and you're a CEO. Where do you find the energy to do all that? And you need to keep health as your number 1 objective. And so Jo, who was so overcommitted, realized that what I was telling her was so true, and that if she kept going the way she wouldn't be able to manage everything that she was managing. And by the way, I forgot to mention, she actually had a family and she had 3 kids of her own. So she realized that if she didn't step up and look after her health, she was letting down not only her family, not only her work as in the CEO job, but she was also letting down all the people in the homeless shelter, and all her business partners, all the businesses she ran, the customers and clients. And so that's why she decided to step up and take control of her life. Boom. And that will close the client, because they'll realize, wow, I have nothing compared to this woman, and she still found a way to do it. Why can't I? And of course, guys, let me think about it. Let me think about it a little bit of a different type of objection, because sometimes you might just need to give them a little bit more information. But sometimes what people will say is, you know what? This sounds amazing. So we're pretending to be a digital marketer, and we're helping people with their website. This sounds amazing and I'd love to do it, but just give me 1 month. Call me back in 1 month. How many of you guys have heard this? Call me back in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months time, and I'll definitely commit then. Because they think that if they go away for 1 month, things are going to change, but nothing's going to change. So let me tell you about Jack. Jack is a friend of mine that I met through uni. Jack was a personal trainer, and he was doing face-to-face consultations for his personal training business as he was realizing that he's getting burnt out. And so when I approached him and I told him about about building a website, he had no idea where to even start. He wasn't technologically equipped, and he also had no idea how a website would help him. And so what I did was I just quickly showed him a really basic layout of a website and how he could utilize booking calls and scheduling appointments through the website, and everything happened automatically, reminders and all of that, and it really freed up his time. But when I first approached Jack, he goes, you know what, I don't think this is the right thing for me. Just let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And that's exactly where he realized that because he was delaying, because he wasn't taking action right then and there, his business was getting burnt out to the ground. He's pretty much maxed out in hours. He had no more time in the day to do what he wanted, and he wanted to think about, automating his business. And so when he saw past that excuse that he was coming up with, he took me on board. We made a website for him, and now it's generating him over 40 clients a week. Now he doesn't even have to, obviously he does the working out with them, but he doesn't have to maintain at all. They go onto the website, it takes them through the booking call, they schedule in a time for an appointment to meet up with him so they can talk about the plan, the nutrition goal, and the weight goal, and the plan to get them there. And then from there they just start, with the personal training. And so what I made it clear to him to understand was that the longer he waits, the more he suffers in the long term. Boom. All right, guys, I think there's enough examples. I can go on and on and on all day. I hope this has been super valuable for you, as it has for me and my business. These two, I guess we could call them strategies, coupled together, I call the number one killer objection handling technique, because you can't have one and not the other. You can't have storytelling and not pre-handling. You can't have pre-handling without storytelling. They go together, so I call them one. This technique will absolutely dominate your ability to handle objections and your ability to close sales comfortably. I want you guys to do something though. Two things actually. Number one, write down what has been most valuable for you. Different people take different things out of training, so what I want you to do is write down what's been most valuable for you so that you can write it down and look at it and then apply it into your life. Number two, apply it is the main part. You can hear all these fantastic things day in and day out, but unless you apply it, nothing's going to change. That's it for me, guys. Thank you very much, and like always, go out there and thrive.